And we are live and in person. Just got done with a fabulous This Week in Conservatism Patreon podcast. Go to patreon.com/RINOpod, patreon.com/RINOpod, patreon.com/RINOpod. Only $1 a month for all your RINOpod needs. Kaitlin, how was your week?
It was good. Busy week. Very busy.
I know. Same here. We're relaxing late on a Sunday evening, and we are in the midst of another MassGOP self-inflicted shit show. Kaitlin, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay, go.
I want you to answer honestly. Wait till I'll tell you when I want the answer. Okay. Can you think of any political figure that constantly fails, but yet tells you their failures are actually successes? Does that ring any bells for you? Who in politics, nationally, locally, might fail over and over again, but they tell you their successes, and while they're telling you that, they're fighting for the good cause? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, the president of the United States right now.
The president of the United States. The president of the United States stinks. He's bad at his job. He's a doddering old fool and constantly screws up. He's failing the country. He's failing his party, and his polls reflect that. Yet he will tell you that Afghanistan was a success. He will tell you that, no, inflation is actually a good thing because it's people getting back to work. No, actually, all of the economic indicators and the lack of job growth is a good thing. He'll lie right to your face and tell you all his failures are successes. Do you know who else does that? Jim Lyons. Jim Lyons, chairman of the MassGOP. Chairman of the MassGOP, who barely is raising enough money to keep the lights on, can't win an election to save his life, is embarrassing himself all over the place in media, and will tell you he's still fighting for America and fighting the radical left. It's ridiculous. And he should resign. He won't. I know he won't. I don't care at this point. I'm having fun dunking on him every time this stuff comes up. And when we get a lot of views on these episodes, keep in mind, folks, we don't pull this out of thin air and decide to talk about Jim Lyons and his failures and how bad he is at running the party. This is all self-inflicted. It's in the Globe. It's on TV. It's on Turtle Boy Sports. It's or Turtle Boy Daily or whatever. You know, sorry, Aiden. It's all over the place every single time. Every single time, whether it's a state committee talking about how they hate gay people, or some Boston City Council candidate who we gave $4 grand to, who makes anti-Chinese statements on Facebook. I mean, whew, we pick them. We pick them, and it is a disaster. I've spoken long enough for the intro now, Kaitlin. What say you?
I mean, I consider Jacqueline a friend now. So yeah, I fell asleep when all of this was going down and then woke up to it. So Jeff, would you like to go into the current MassGOP drama?
Yeah, I'll do my best to recap it. As far as I know, I could have some details off. And I want to, all right, mark the minute. We're at a minute like 4:15, 4:20. Because Turtle Boy Sports sort of is intertwined with this. And I like Aiden and some of the work he's done, but he got something wrong here that I want to explain. And if one day maybe we'll do a swap cast and talk it through. There was a candidate, Donnie Palmer, who was well below average pro boxer, former pro boxer, I'm assuming, who was a city council candidate. Came in like 14th out of 17th in the city of Boston. Jim Lyons had decided to give him $4 grand for a candidacy that was going to go nowhere. And In doing so, you know, endorsed him because he was a local Republican running for office. Now, $4,000, not that much money, but when you're barely raising, you know, enough to keep the lights on, I don't know if it's money that wisely spent. So Donnie Palmer made some comments on Facebook saying that Michelle Wu was a Chinese citizen, which is factually incorrect, and said that, you know, we're about to elect a Chinese citizen to run the city of Boston. Somebody else had commented that the Chinese want to do to America what the Europeans used to want to do to Africa. And Donnie had replied, correct, like agreed with it, correct. So not like god-awful stuff, but just bad, like not terrible. Jacqueline, who is of Chinese descent, went to Jim with this and was like, are you going to rescind the endorsement? Are you going to say anything about this? And he's like, we'll talk to Donnie about it. Like, that's not the point. Jacqueline, and this is the thing I think for Aiden at Turtle Boy, I want to, that it's getting lost. He called her a whiny chick, which was bullshit and not the way it should have been handled. Because Jacqueline's on the state committee. Her job is to hold the chairman responsible, the failing, incompetent chairman responsible. So when the party and he directs money towards a candidate who screws up like this, you have to push it forward to either get a correction or rescind the endorsement or fix it or do damage control. And Jacqueline was looking for that, and it didn't happen. Of course, Jim just, you know, stubbornly stomps his feet like a little child. And says, no, we'll just talk to Donnie about it. It's like, well, Jacqueline and Donnie aren't like, don't personally know each other. That's not the point of this thing. This is politics. We're trying to get people elected. You know, he said something that he shouldn't have said. Either he publicly apologizes for it and tries to take it back, which I don't know if he did. Maybe he did or maybe he didn't. If he did, that's good. But Lyons has some responsibility. Now, from what I understand, Baker called for Jim to resign again, which he should, but he won't. I think it was over this. And then Lyons decides to say, well, perhaps Charlie Baker should change his party affiliation. Complete bullshit. Now, lost in this, Jim, if you're ever listening to this, lost in this is your big fight against the radical left. You're trying to defeat the only guy in the state of Massachusetts standing between us and a complete takeover of the radical left, and you're working against that. And by the way, you haven't done anything to fight the radical left. You're actually helping them. You're actually helping the radical left get more power if Charlie Baker loses. You dope. And by the way, we're done playing nice. I know you think you're so smart, and with Jeff Deal running for governor and your little grift with Howie Carr. And by the way, when election's over, see how much money is spent on the Howie Carr radio program with advertising dollars. It's all about the grift. So that's what's going on right now. Incompetence, stupidity. We just have to fight through this. It's happening all across the country. We got to have it out. So I don't think I missed anything per se, but I think I peel back a layer of what's going on. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Clearly, the thing about it is that it's like, why can you just not handle issues? Like, I don't understand why Jim just can't handle any issues. Like, if Jacqueline comes to you and asks you to handle it, and you gave them Donnie money, yeah, like you're a part of this, or you could at least like set them up so they can talk. I mean, it's just so asinine, Jeff. It honestly, it just becomes a bigger like he doesn't get it, and he doesn't know how to run a state party, and we're not bringing in any money. We're only seeing drama all over the place. So what's the point of you anymore?
Yeah.
What's the point of you being in charge anymore?
That they get to throw monkey wrenches into the whole situation and be in the position and possess the title.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. And to circle back to Aiden over at Turtle Boy, he came out with a story that should be front page of every major media outlet about State Rep Liz Miranda is having a relationship with a parolee who from his sources, not mine, his sources, violating his parole. I believe a convicted murderer, if I'm not mistaken. Sitting state rep is having a relationship with this person, and when they're meeting, when they're getting together, he was in violation of his parole. Now that's the report is, if I'm remembering it correctly, as reported by him. That's huge. That's a huge story. And he's like tweeting at the MassGOP to like get them involved. It's like, Aiden, you might as well be tweeting at me that I didn't do a good job as quarterback for the Patriots tonight. Like there's like they can't happen. Like they're not capable of doing it. Like this is the problem. Lyons is incompetent. The party has no money. If things had gone differently back in January, we'd have a complete media operation headed by you know who, which would be able to hammer this home, and the whole state would know about this, the corruption, all over the place, and it'd be fabulous. Now it's just impotent press releases that nobody reads and nobody cares about. And that's the thing. That's what I want people really to get. This has an effect. Like this will affect your lives. If we can't get a functioning state party to get more state legislative seats, we will continue to lose them. The Democrats will get a even tighter stranglehold on power, and Sleepy Jim, who just can't get his shit together, will be responsible for it. So like, just don't expect anything now until he's gone. It's not going to change. They'll barely keep the lights on. And I don't blame Jacqueline for going after him. She doesn't like him. Like half the committee doesn't like him at this point. And the other half is only sticking with him because they don't like Charlie, because they listen to Howie Carr and talk radio and Jeff Cooner, and they just want to get riled up and hate Tall Duvall and all that bullshit. So, I mean, it's serious stuff, but they play at it like it's a game. And they're unserious people. So we're just going to continue to meander on here. And I don't know, maybe something will break. But, we're in October, November, take December off, January, February. We got about 4, maybe 5 months before convention. We can beat Lyons and Jim. You just got to get the numbers. You got to get, organized people. But I'm not hearing anything out of Baker World. I mean, since I think he's going to run. All signs point to he's running. He's showing up to a lot of city council candidate election campaign parties. He's making the rounds. I think it's going to happen, which is good. Most sane people agree he's the only thing standing between us and a complete takeover by the radical left, and Jim wants to shut that down. He's working against America. He is Joe Biden, and that needs to sink in. Okay. Anything on that? Or if I talked enough and talked through this episode?
No, Jeff, you're very passionate about being anti-Jim Lyons. I've made this point clearly before. If you are not seeing success as a state party chair in winning elections, then you need to step down or be replaced.
Yeah.
My rubric actually for success is very clear in this type of work. You need to elect Republicans, you need to bring in money, and you need to run a state party that is sufficient. And sufficient is a low bar, right, Jeff? I mean,
let me say this right. It's a low bar. Let me say this flat out. I don't know Jim Lyons very well. But I
all of his press releases that have no point do not hit Joe Biden and the Democrats. They focus on nonsense, and media is a part of it. He's just not doing his job correctly.
No, he never.
And that's the biggest issue here. We need to be starting to build voters, even bringing indies over to us. In order for us to win elections. We're not doing that at all, and that's troubling to me, and people who are deregistering is troubling to me. So make a decision. If you're not going to do this, then don't do it anymore.
Well, if we had millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank account, if we had not lost legislative seats and maybe just held serve, I wouldn't be as vocal about this. It's just the complete failure and the bragging about the failure that I mean, like, I don't care if a millionaire is backing his chairmanship. In fact, I'm a big fan of millionaires, like, getting involved in politics and doing, as long as they win. I just, you know, I want my party to beat the Democrats. And let me point this out to you. This is one thing I wanted to mention to the liberals who watch this show. And they're getting out their popcorn at all the dysfunction at the MassGOP. Shitheads. My analogy to Joe Biden and Jim Lyons is completely true. Joe Biden is doing to America what Jim Lyons is doing to our party. And you're going to get your asses kicked next year. It's going to happen. So you can laugh at the MassGOP all you want, but my comparison is completely accurate. Completely accurate. And you're going to see the price. You're going to see the
dysfunction that you're currently having in your federal national party right now in Congress is based on the fact that you all didn't win the seats that you wanted in the House and in the Senate during a supposed blue wave in the 2020 election. So, yeah, and that is Joe Biden not pulling people down ballot. He does not have the electoral prowess that he used to have. And that's going to be a problem for you all going forward. Yeah. Trump had that, to be quite honest. He did have that to a certain extent. Biden does not have that. And you will have some really huge issues that the Democrats need to solve on a federal level, and the Republicans are not in power. Yeah. We don't need to be leading your party and solving these problems for you. If you're going to promote that you have all of the answers, you need to solve your problems. And the same goes for Jim Lyons, I think, with the MassGOP. If you're going to say that you have all the answers on how to run a state party, because we all heard you during your last election against Sean, where you bragged about cutting expenditures and having all these solutions and whatever your Trump election nonsense that you were also peddling, which was extremely troubling. You're failing at this job. And so you're having people like us, Jeff and I, the normals, questioning whether or not you should be in this role. And the answer is clearly no.
Yeah. Look, I wouldn't care if we had money and we're winning. That's it. But
we're not.
We're not.
We're
not. Like, this is, and what pisses me off the most is, like, you're going to sit there and tell me you're doing a great job and you're fighting for America and fighting against the left. You're not doing it. You don't go. You're not first of all,
I haven't received an email about how Joe Biden is fucking up America. Right. Like, maybe like 3, but I haven't received a good email. I'm getting like literally a novel long email from the MassGOP that I don't want to fucking read, Jeff. Yeah. Like, I want to see a graphic and go.
Lyons is going out there saying he's fighting the radical left, and he won't even go on Greater Boston or Boston Public Radio and fight the libs there and argue our case for it. Because why? Because you're too busy raising money? I mean, you say you fight the radical left. You're not fighting shit. Kaitlin and I fight the radical left a fuckload more than you do, because we actually get out here and put our faces on a camera, talk about it, get thousands of views on this podcast. Go ahead, check the numbers that watch this show and actually defeat the arguments. I mean, look, beat the press.
I fight the left every single day on Twitter. And I literally am like, come at me. Like, I literally say trains suck, and they try to come at me and they still look stupid. I don't, they're not doing anything. It's almost like they're afraid to do anything, and then they put Howie Carr in front of them.
Yep.
And Howie Carr only has certain set of audience. You need to be building a coalition and bringing in new voters. Not everyone listens to Howie fucking Carr. So find new ways to get the message out. I mean, look at the election, the governor's election down in Virginia, Jeff. Youngkin has run like this like incredible campaign. He's bringing in new voters. He's literally going to Latino voters and saying, we want you with us. We know that you don't like the left. We want you with us instead. And he's putting everything in Spanish. He's going to them. MassGOP doesn't do this. And it's ridiculous.
They can't. They don't have, Jim doesn't have the capacity to get it done. Okay? It's like,
it's not even capacity. I don't even think he wants to do it.
It's just lip service. It's just lip service to it. It's like but it's like, you know, going to the hardware store for ice cream. Like it's not going to happen. You can't get the results you want the way it is. And there is a universe where we could absolutely support Charlie Baker and at the same time support President Trump, believe it or not. You know, even despite the differences that they might have as a party organization, you can of course straddle that lines, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard. But people want to make it this thing where it's like, wow, well, I heard him say this and I'm going to say that, and they don't like each other, and I support the president and I support the governor. It's like, okay. I mean, like we said on the Patreon episode, I don't believe the whole, oh, let's all unite. No, fight it out. But like, as a state party, you can absolutely thread the line. Just go after the left. Go after the media.
Hey, yeah, like, do your job as a functional state party. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, we could have promoted Charlie Baker. We could have, you know, and supported him, right? Like, you might have disagreed with maybe some of the COVID restrictions, but like, but it's not like we're the only state that had them. Holy shit.
But there could have been a blend where it's like you could have guided him more to the right if you wanted to, or put out the more sensible conservative option.
Was more sensible than I would say New York State was from the beginning.
Of course.
Even after vaccines started, we originally lifted the mandate in May. I mean, what was put down, he allowed the states to really do, minus the masks in school. I mean, it's his governance there moving forward has been rather conservative, and we should be grateful for that.
Yeah.
But then they want him to, I don't know, govern like the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem. He's not going to do that.
But also, he can't. Like this is the other thing that people don't get. Is that the legislature does most of the governing in any state, and it's supposed to be federally. Like Congress or the legislature is supposed to have most of the power and get this done, and we just do not focus on it.
Well, it's not even focus on it. Congress willingly gives their power to the executive.
Right.
And that is a problem. But in Massachusetts, if we can't even elect, any state house reps or anything like that, like that's a problem, Jeff. Like these are lower state level reps that we can't get out there.
No, and we could.
And the people who suffer, me and Jeff, guys, like that's the thing. Like it's the average middle class voter who doesn't like the left that suffers here. Like if we had a strong state party, we wouldn't be having these issues, and those people would be represented. But now we have people in charge who represent us that say stupid shit like climate justice. Like that doesn't mean anything unless you have an actual plan for nuclear power behind you. It's just nonsense. They say anything with the word justice behind it, and they think that that's electable. When you don't have someone saying that's crazy, this is a real actual plan for us to put into policy, for that is a Republican that has an R behind their name, you're not even trying. And that's the problem. I don't think Charlie Baker's the issue here, because I can see him actually trying, and I've heard his words, actually trying to put people in, spots where they can get elected. The problem is the other parts of the state party structure, and you all know what I'm talking about.
Speaking of people who say stupid shit like justice and justice over and over again, Michelle Wu had a debate with Anissa Essayah-George this week for Boston mayor. And
so I drove into Boston for the first time since like the beginning of summer, because well, you all know famously on Twitter, my favorite shoe repair guy is in the financial district. And well, I didn't go down for that. The lady who does my facials is an esthetician at Balance on Newbury Street. But I did not see one woo sign.
I mean, you're not going to see them that many on Newbury. I wouldn't think anyway.
But I didn't see any in Beacon Hill, and I thought that was interesting.
Huh. Well, they had a debate on, well, sometime this week, and I caught the highlights while I was at Dunkin' the next morning, and I must say, Anissa Sabi-George definitely handled herself well after a week where she was called racist for having a Boston accent by Renee Graham. And in the bar, it's insane. It's insane. It's insane. I mean, Renee.
The same stuff is like the climate justice stuff. Like, she's racist because she has a Boston accent. She grew up here. She has a Boston accent. What the fuck are you talking about, lady?
Oh, it's completely stupid.
This stuff is so like it's so stupid to me. Like, what were you expecting for to have this like monotoned, like, you know, like no enunciations to any words type of like bland.
There's a former sheriff, Andrea Cabral, who does radio, you know, local NPR, Boston radio, you know, GBH or I think WGBH. And she's a woman of color, and she has a thick Boston accent. She just does. Like, people were trying to, this was just floating around Boston Twitter. Like, do you know any people of color with like Boston accents? I'm like, yeah, I know like a few for sure that I can think of. And she was one of them. She's on the radio. And Renee Graham's trying to put out like the accent, like, is indicative of racism. I mean, granted, it's all this spin. Everything she crowbars racism to anything because that's her shtick. That's her job. She's the professional racism finder at the Boston Globe. But I almost in a sense appreciate how bad they are at this point because they're so ridiculous. And over time, it's just been a death of a thousand cuts that nobody actually takes what they have to say seriously anymore. They just don't. They just don't. I mean,
it's like it's so fucking silly.
It's just but all it is, it's content for this podcast. It's literally
also, like Renee Graham. I mean, like, your thought that Boston accents equate racism is fucking silly, and you need to stop because what you're doing is stereotyping people, and that's bad.
But
stereotyping people in a negative way, not like a comical way or any other way. Like, you are doing it out of malice alone, and that is bad.
Yeah. No, there's evil intent behind that to ascribe racism to anybody that has a Boston accent, and it's the old Boston, and the old Boston is racist, and every bullshit trope we've heard time and again.
You mean the old Boston that like elects Democrats like since like 1920?
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to look up the history of the old city bosses, and like back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s about the Democratic Party and the racist stuff the Democratic Party did in Boston to suppress the black vote, feel free to dig up that history. You know, really frightening stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there is actual history there, but don't get me wrong. Like, but I'm sorry, but saying in 2021 that someone is racist based on their accent alone is silly. It is silly nonsense. But the fact that the Boston Globe even publishes this makes it even more silly. Like, they are supposed to be a serious publication, and they just aren't.
But that's the point now, though. They're not a serious. They haven't been a serious publication for a while, and definitely since John Henry took over, it's about the clicks and the click-throughs. Like, but it's so
well, they
like,
have to, right?
Right,
they have to.
The Renee Graham article, no doubt, brought traffic into the website. There's no doubt about it. Of course, because it's a troll job. Like, it's not serious journalism, serious commentary. It's a troll job. You throw out, she's trolling, and granted, I'll bite. I have no problem hammering you on your if you want to say something stupid and let the right hammer you on it, and you think you won or it's an own, you owned us because we're dunking on you. Like, that's not how it works. You said something. You still said something incredibly stupid and naive and just ill thought out. And this is a lot of what's going through. I mean, some to the New York Times extent, the Globe, all of the, I mean, God, Yvonne Abraham is, you know, and Joan Vanaki are, it's the same stuff over and over and over again. Every week, it's just progressive talking points. They get their marching orders from somebody. You know, not maybe Ron Klain, who the hell knows, but they just push this stuff nonstop over and over and over again. And then they have news stories about it, actual news, not commentary that bleeds its way in. It is throughout the pages of the Boston Globe. So everybody just tunes out. They don't take you seriously. I like it because I like making fun of you and having a good time doing it. That's why we do it on this podcast. It's great, and we'll relegate you to irrelevance. It'll be fun. I mark that as a success. Beat the Press is not on the air in some part because of like the video clips. Like we were saying before, we've done more to fight the radical left than a lot of outlets in Massachusetts. I mean, we're you know, we point out and pick apart what the other side is doing. Not too many people are doing that, and they need to do that. They need to do that. But back to the Boston mayor's race, Anissa Sabi-George did a very good job. Michelle Wu was just like platitudes all over the place. Nothing concrete. Nothing concrete. It's all just nice sounding words and, oh, I want a bold vision. And she's just like, we need public safety. What do you mean a bold vision? What are you talking about?
How long can that be sustainable, right, Jeff? Like, I mean, yeah. So Biden came in, on platitudes. Kamala Harris is just fake and platitudes. And I mean how is that sustainable?
Obama used up that honeymoon a long time ago. Okay, like nobody's having it. Like every progressive thinks they're going to get into office and cruise like he did, with just, you know, boundless media support.
Right? People don't understand that Obama was a cultural. He was culturally significant, right? Joe Biden is not. Obama also came in with 60 votes in the Senate. That's filibuster proof. Mm-hmm. And an overwhelming majority in the House. He was a cultural movement. Biden clearly isn't. And I think the fakeness is just coming through. I mean, so I actually recently just watched Beat for the first time. I actually have not watched it. It's Veep? Not my real. Yeah.
Oh God, that's it was one of the funniest shows ever. I mean, it's Kamala Harris.
It is Kamala Harris. So Beef is actually not my type of show. I actually like Succession, which the first episode of season 3 comes on real soon. Actually, it's probably already playing. But anyway, yeah, I watched it for the first time, and Kamala's like that. But the platitudes are one thing that like is an automatic red flag for me. Anytime someone comes out and is like climate justice or like, I don't know, like some type of justice,
no, just like equality. We need
and
this.
Then if somebody says we need to restructure police, that is also a huge red flag for me.
Well,
I'm sorry, this is a society, and we need a police force. You need to figure that out.
It looks like Wu is going to win this one. The big question will be when she gets into office, if it was all lip service to progressive activists, and she does none of it, which would be great. Or if she's like de Blasio and is like, no, we're gonna
cool.
She's gonna de Blasio New York City. I mean, I'm de Blasio Boston.
First groundhog. So
yeah, but so we'll wait and see on that. It's not looking good, but hopefully she just you know, basically, you know, feeds the progressives a line of bullshit to get elected, and then doesn't do anything.
I don't know. I think she's legit.
No,
I think she really.
She's de Blasio-ish. It'll happen.
Yeah, I think Wu is very believes the bullshit.
Yeah. So, well, it's our hometown. It's gonna be great. Last up, Mayor Pete or Secretary Pete's paternity leave. I know lots of podcasts have covered this, and I guess we'll be the next.
We don't have to go deep dive. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to do a deep dive. The one thing that we need to point out is that cabinet secretaries serve at the leisure of the President of the United States. If the President of the United States didn't know that Mayor Pete was on paternity leave, that's an issue. That's a huge issue to me, and the American public deserves to know, because they're a federal cabinet position. I don't have any issue with Mayor Pete taking paternity leave. That's not the problem here. I do have an issue with the fact that it doesn't seem like the deputy secretary of transportation stepped up to the plate while we have all these supply issues. And that's a huge red flag for me.
I have somewhat of an issue with paternity leave. I don't.
Are you going to pull out this like Matt Walsh take on me?
Like a little bit light one. I mean, it's like when you have one kid, when you've had a kid, you do understand what it takes to raise a kid, and you don't need to be home for 2 months as a dad. You just flat out don't. You could maybe take a week or two, and then you could probably get back to work. It's just reality. It just is. You know, and especially if Chaston, is that the guy, his husband's name? If he's doing, if he's doing the lion's share of the work, yeah, it is. But aside from that, you know, yeah, he should have gone back to work. I don't have a problem with the concept.
The American public should have known what was going on from the beginning.
Yeah, but
I mean, it should have been very well known.
What pisses me off most about it, the whole situation, is them spinning it to be about paternity leave instead of him doing a lousy job. That's of course they're gonna, you know, straw man the conversation to be about paternity leave.
It's not about paternity leave in general. Like, a lot of people either have a, you know, pro or anti take. Like, that's not really the issue here. The issue here is that he is a cabinet secretary, and we as the American people in the time of a supply chain issue should have known what was going on and where he was, and whether or not he was having direct communication with the president of the United States about this. He didn't. I don't think he did. We should have at least known who the deputy. I mean, I know because I am a nerd and I look it up. We should at least knew who the deputy secretary of transportation was, and she just wasn't a part of the conversation at all.
All right. That's it for RINO Podcast fans. Go to the Patreon, sign up for patreon.com /RINOPod, only $1 a month. We just did a great episode on This Week in Conservatism, tackling what's going on with Jonah Goldberg, the Dispatch, the Bulwark, the Integralists with Sohrab Ahmari and Adrian Vermeule, and the whole rigmarole, and back and forth, and National Review, and deep in the bubble. All right. Anything else, Kaitlin?
No, I think we covered all. We had a really good packed week, I think.
A lot going on. And for those of you who think there is light at the end of the tunnel for the MassGOP, there's not. Jim Lyons, the election for chairman is not until January of 2023. So it's
the light at the end of the tunnel is that date. So
yeah, so it's
until then it's going down into the inferno. And down into the 7 layers of hell, and having to climb back out again.
Yeah, I think John McCain used to say this when he was campaigning. He'd come up for Scott Brown, and he'd say, it's always darkest before it goes completely pitch black. So that's it. It ain't going to get better. He's going to run it into the ground. So, you know, hey, good luck to everybody out there trying to get elected if you're a Republican. But stay tuned to this fabulous program, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.